Uh-oh, Nobel Prize-winning economist here to tell us how great the economy is. I certainly wonder how the residents of Asheville, North Carolina must be feeling right now with no access to power or water or communication with the outside world. I wonder how enthusiastic they are about the economy right now. I wonder how enthusiastic the residents of the South Bronx must be feeling about the economy. Hey, maybe North Carolina should rename itself Israel so it'll get $20 billion in aid. Or maybe Ukraine so it can get $300 billion in aid. Maybe the South Bronx should do the same thing. I mean, I'm sure the economy is great for smug liberals like yourself.
Joining us today on Breaking Points Beyond the Headlines is Jose Vega. He is running for Congress in New York's 15th congressional district as an independent against Democrat Ritchie Torres. Jose, appreciate you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
So I think for a lot of people, this is maybe their first time meeting you or hearing your ideas. So kind of give us your pitch. Why are you running? What are your big policy proposals? How are you different from Ritchie Torres? Basically, what do you want people to know about you?
Well, one of the reasons I decided to run for Congress is because people asked me to. I mean, that was a big part of it. I mean, I'm known for yelling at people like AOC, Kamala Harris, Mike Pompeo, Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries. Basically, anybody who deserves to be yelled at, I will do my best to go up and yell at them. And it didn't always start that way. I mean, I look to do Q&As, I look to do the microphone stuff, but if there is no Q&A or if there is no way to get a question across, I'm just going to stand up and get my question heard or whatever I have to say heard. And so I built up a reputation for being somebody who speaks up and is able to articulate the frustrations of Americans or people around the world, frankly, who feel as if the current way in which our government is running is not doing them a service, but rather putting them in the back seat, if not trying to intentionally silence them and sometimes even kill them. And that's why I'm running for Congress. And I'm running for Congress against Ritchie Torres, who is an AIPAC shill. One of the things that I'm trying to do, apart from stopping the genocidal wars in Gaza, Ukraine, and in all these other places, is I'm trying to redevelop the South Bronx. I actually believe that the way in which you switch from a war economy to a productive economy is not just by denouncing war and saying war is bad and we need to stop it. Those things are self-evident. The thing is our entire economy is relying upon war. That is the entire U.S. economy. It's powered by war production, making tools of destruction, and speculation as well. I'm saying we need to bring productivity back, that we need to have our economy focused on building things, developing new technologies that actually help people and benefit people. And one of the ways I want to do that is by building a space civilian construction corps, taking people who are between the ages of 18 to 26, putting them in places where they can work with the Army Corps of Engineers and union leaders and say, here, we're going to train you how to be an engineer. You're going to get paid while you're getting all this training. You're going to learn to be a machinist, a welder, a carpenter, whatever you need to be to fix your neighborhood, to go build the schools that were shut down, the hospitals that were shut down, to build new means of infrastructure like a cross-Bronx train or an interborough train that connects the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn together. To build high-speed rail. And they'll get this training for 2 years and they'll be at the point where they could work at NASA as a STEM engineer. That's how good this training will be. And they'll be exported out to different parts of the country where they will be rebuilding not just the South Bronx, but the entire country as a whole.
So when you speak of this program, is this a public program or is this a private sector project that you're?
Oh, this is public, baby. This is just like what FDR did with his CCC program, the Civilian Conservation Corps. He took young men between the ages of 18 to 27 who were unemployed and uneducated, gave them an education, gave them skills. They built most of the national parks. And I'm saying we need to revive that right now. We need to rebuild the entire country, and we need to stop sending our boys across the ocean to go and kill people, keep them here so that they can get training and an education and development. See, because if you take the population of 18 to 26 right now, you're going to realize one thing very quickly. A lot of them are out of shape. A lot of them have all kinds of mental health problems. They've got all kinds of problems that are going to be required to be addressed if you want a productive workforce. So that is the incentive incentive to give people health care. That is the incentive to give people mental health access and care. And that is the incentive to make sure you can have a good education system so that you can have a productive workforce of people who are happy, who can actually be creative and build things. And this would be entirely funded publicly.
Okay, so then in terms of your local community, the Bronx, can you talk a little bit about maybe the differences in approach that you would have versus Ritchie Torres? Like, let's leave the foreign policy stuff out of it, but just talk about the community itself. Do you think he's delivered for his community? Because I think a lot of what happens, I think, when AIPAC, let's say, supports a candidate, they don't necessarily straight up just talk about Israel. They sometimes will divert attention and say, hey, we can help you deliver for your community if you just help us with this whole, Israel thing. So what's his approach versus your approach?
His approach is putting in smart thermostats. So here in the Bronx, we have a problem where there are a lot of buildings that don't have heating, or don't have adequate heating, or don't have hot water because their boiler systems are ancient and nobody's actually addressing them or repairing them. And so he had this plan to put a thermostat inside people's apartments that when the temperature gets too low, a report will be sent to Housing and Preservation Development. That's a city bureau organization here that's supposed to go look at apartments, not realizing that the problem isn't that people aren't reporting these things. Okay. I reported to HPD when my entire ceiling collapsed in my basement apartment. I reported to them that sewage water was actively leaking in, and they said, that's horrible. We'll be there in 2 weeks to go and take a look at it. Right. That's the thing. And then they came and looked at it and they said, yeah, that's pretty bad. Okay. Well, we'll give the landlord 6 months to fix this. So it's not the fact that it's not being reported to HPD, but that's it. That and also outlawing or at least making lithium batteries more federally compliant are the only two laws I can think of that in some way has benefited the Bronx. What he does is he gives money to food pantries, and he touts that as a success. Yeah, there are long lines of people who have to rely on food pantries to make a living. That's horrible. Absolutely horrible that he thinks that this is a success. Like, great, we got more funding for food pantries. Why are people lining up for food pantries to begin with? So that is the best that Ritchie Torres has had. And I'm calling for the young people of this borough of our community to be the ones to rebuild it.
Is there a reason? So, like, in terms of opposing Ritchie Torres, I'm trying to get more of a sort of well-rounded picture of your ideology. Is there a reason you chose to run as an independent versus going through maybe a Democrat primary challenge or perhaps even as a Republican? Is there a reason that you're non-affiliated?
Yes, I don't believe that the two-party system has the ability or the effort to address people's needs properly anymore. And I wanted to make a point that people should declare their independence again. I think a lot of people have forgotten what it means to be an American. A lot of people have forgotten our history. Here in the Bronx, one of our founding fathers, Gouverneur Morris, a name that a lot of people don't even know, even though this man penned the Constitution, was the author of the preamble, the famous words, "We the people." That was him. And he is buried down at St. Anne's Church on 138th Street. And people don't know who that is or what those words even mean anymore. And I wanted to set out and prove a point to people that you don't need to run as a two-party whatever, because frankly, I believe there's only one party. They're the same party. It's a uniparty, just, painted differently. I set out to prove to people that they should declare their own independence as well. That in order to run for something, you don't need to rely on the infrastructure that exists there, because the infrastructure is what swallows you up and you become just another corporate tool. I like to believe AOC was genuine when she ran. Some people tell me she was like that the entire time. I see their points. Sometimes I don't even disagree with them. But I do think there was some genuine, honest intention there. And she became swallowed up by that same party that she so opposed, or she said she was going to cause a ruckus. And she was saying things like, I don't care if I'm a one-term congresswoman. Well, clearly she did. And now she is there speaking at the DNC, promoting and endorsing Kamala Harris. I don't want to be that. And should I win in Congress, I don't want to be beholden to an infrastructure system that would demand me to make moral concessions. I want to be beholden only to my constituents. And that's why I decided to run as an independent.
Interesting. So if I could follow up on that question. So as an independent, in order for you to win your path to victory, you might have to rely on a coalition of voters who may not agree on everything. So I'm wondering, what are some things that you would be willing to bend on versus what principles will you never compromise on? Like, for example, in order to stop, let's say to stop the war machine, would you be willing to work with people who are maybe more religious and don't want to have, abortion, want to limit abortion access for women? What issues are sort of no go for you versus ones you're willing to kind of work with people on?
I don't believe in having little victories here and there. Like, okay, yeah, the genocide's still going on, but we can have some health care here. I don't believe that. I think everything has to be an orientation from the top down. I don't believe in like, okay, we lost the battle on healthcare, but we can keep the battle on abortion. I think it's a stupid way to think about government. I think it's a stupid way to think about country as a whole, because we are making a society and a culture that is not actually for us, because you and I don't live forever. But what kind of society can we cultivate for somebody who will be born 100 years after we're dead? What is the work that you and I need to do to make that a reality for that person who's born after we're dead to have a better life than you and I are? And that means it's like, then we have to think about it from that standpoint, from the future, because the future is what defines the present. So, I think taking things one issue at a time here or there is a very pragmatic way of doing politics that I think is outdated and is not going to address the proper crisis we are in. We are in a crisis right now where if we don't blow ourselves up through nuclear war, we're about to experience a big financial economic crash, and the reason you're having that crisis is because you don't have people who care enough about government anymore. See, that's the other thing too, right? If I was in Congress, I'm expected to negotiate and make deals with some of the worst, most corrupt people in the world right now who have no principle. If I'm talking to another congressman like Dan Crenshaw, I'm not talking to him. I'm talking to his donors, probably. I'm talking to the people who actually bankroll him. There is no compromise I would ever make with any of those people in there who are completely morally bankrupt and corrupt. Maybe Thomas Massey. I like Massey. He's probably the only congressman in there who I actually like. No, I would dedicate my time to getting other independent voices in there that I trust, that people can trust. Angela McArdle is the chair of the Libertarian Party. I love her to death. I disagree with her so much on all kinds of policy discussions. But if she wanted to run for senator, I would probably help her or endorse her, not because I agree with her on policy, but because she is somebody I trust, because she's motivated by what she thinks is going to make the life of her kids better. She's not motivated by some agenda. She's motivated by what will make my kids and grandkids' lives better. That's the kind of government we need to build. And that's somebody I would compromise on. That's somebody I would say, you know what, Angela? Okay, fine. You give me this and I'll give you that kind of deal, but not with the current people in government now, because our government is completely rotten and corrupt. And you can't take a pragmatic approach anymore and saying, I'm running on a healthcare policy, because that doesn't mean anything when our whole economic orientation is just focused on killing people. So, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit before we wrap. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing on the ground in terms of getting this message out. Is it effective? What have you been hearing? Kind of what's your plan between now and November?
We are either on the phones or in the field pretty much every day. In the field being like the streets, we go to busy intersections. We have giant banners with my name on them, my face on them, and my friend Diane Sayre. And the kind of reception we're getting is people who recognize me either because we put up so many posters. So we've had over 800 stores here in the Bronx agree to keep my poster up until November 5th. Because like some of these posters you see here in the background are in the stores of the Bronx, pretty much all over from the South all the way up north. So I get a lot of people who recognize me from that. I get a lot of people who recognize me from the internet, who've seen me on Jimmy Dore or on this show or that show, or recognize me from the intervention. One of my favorite interactions was what we had on Saturday, where we were out, we were rallying. Somebody recognized me from Jimmy Dore's show. They were a fan. They were cool. They kept kind of lingering around our table. I was wondering what they were doing. And then they just started passing out my cards. I didn't ask them to do that. They just started doing that. And I think that speaks volumes to what the normal person wants to do nowadays, where they're like, you know what? I want to do something, because they're not trying to get me elected. I mean, of course they are, but also it's like, we're trying to stop a nuclear war right now. We're trying to stop us from going to war with Iran. So, yeah.
So where can people follow you, learn some more information about you?
People can follow me on my website, votevega.nyc. People can follow me on my social media at JOSB as in boy, TRIGGA. I was 14 when I made it. Please don't ask me to explain it. On all socials, it's Joseby Trigga, JOSB, TRIGGA, or you could just type Jose Vega. I have enough followers now where if you type Jose Vega into Instagram or Twitter, I come up and you don't need to put my funky username on there. So, you can follow me on all social media, on my website, and people should also go to Vega Sare, SARE, peacefund.org. That's another place people can follow me as well.
All right. Thank you, Jose. Appreciate you for your time today. Thank you for joining us, and best of luck in the rest of your campaign.
Thank you.
If you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.